December 11th, 5:30. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we have one member who is traveling and the other one is unable to attend. So we have the three cool people here. Okay, let's see, what have we got? Town manager update. I checked with him. He really said he didn't have much to update us on. He is meeting with Barrett Consulting on Wednesday, and the issue about the RFP for North and Center schools will be discussed at that point. So next time we talk to him, he'll be able to update us on that. I also inquired about the declaration of trust, which is probably our first item to be done on our action plan. Mm-hmm. He has not received a response whether it's actually been filed or not. So again, we're still waiting on other people to do things, okay? Correspondence, we have a couple of things here. Received an email, it's probably like 2 weeks ago. It just says, "Good afternoon, Ken. Mr. O'Leary was in today talking about housing and multi-unit development and properties they were looking at in Abington. I told him I would reach out to you to introduce you to him. Perhaps you could have a conversation about a market rate affordable project. If you both decide to have the conversation at a Affordable Housing Trust meeting, I would be happy to attend to listen, perhaps in January. Thanks." Mr. O'Leary works for a Continental Properties, and I believe that they are nationwide. I did a little research real quick because I had no idea who Mr. O'Leary was. But I think Ellen was right. It was Mrs. O'Leary's cow that started the San Francisco fire. That's
what was the name of the company?
Continental Properties. That's the .com. That's what the email came from. So I don't feel comfortable meeting with anyone without the board here. So I'd like to see if he's available at our next meeting, which I think is going to be January 8th. That's when the selectmen are meeting. Unless we want to go to they usually meet the first and, so it'll be January 8th.
The second and fourth.
Yeah, well, they're meeting January 8th, which is the second, right?
We're meeting January 22nd.
All right, then we'll plan on January 22nd. And I honestly don't know, I'll get more information, find out exactly, and when Alexa comes on, if she comes on tonight, maybe we can kind of put a bug in her ear and ask her, you know, what can we do if we're gonna meet with developers? I think that it was part of the action plan to meet with developers and, you know, but I don't really know how that would work.
And the correspondence said market rate.
Right,
So.
yeah. Market rate / affordable, so.
Slash affordable.
Yeah, / affordable,
Okay.
yeah. So, we received another email. We have copies of it. It's basically, part of it is just basically an email from Liz, and I mentioned it about the new, they're really trying to increase affordable housing throughout the state, and they're pumping a lot of money into it. And, this was what, welcome, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. My Zoom was forcing me to reinstall it, so I apologize.
That's okay, thank you. We just started the meeting, and honestly, we'll get to you in just a second, but there's a couple things that we would appreciate if you chime in on, because, you know, one of them is an email that you sent us, and one of them is something that we're talking about now. Well, actually, I'll go back to what we just talked about. We had an inquiry from a gentleman from Continental Properties, a Mr. O'Leary. He was talking about housing and multi-unit developments and properties they were looking at in Abington. That he wants to meet with us and have a conversation about market rate affordable project. Liz Shea, the assistant town planner, would like to sit in, so we're talking about meeting with him in January. Is that something that happens? You know, being new here, I don't know how this works.
So they want to do market rate multifamily with affordable, or all market rate, but
Perhaps you could have a conversation, well, it says, talking about housing and multi-use development and properties they were looking at in Abington. I told, and this is Liz Shea saying, I told them they would reach out to us. Perhaps we could have a conversation about a market rate / affordable project. So, I mean.
oh, okay.
So.
So I mean, in my experience assisting with another housing trust on their kind of, you know, strategic planning, I do know that a developer I recall a developer coming and talking to them, but it was about a particular particular project that they were hoping to kind of have the Housing Trust support on. And I mean, I don't think that is a red flag. I mean, I think that's fine. I can confer with Judy and make sure, but I mean, to me, that sounds like they're trying to do their homework.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. And we don't know what, he might already have something lined up. He might be looking for possibilities. So I don't know. But I guess we won't know anything until we meet with him. So,
Right. And I assume, the only way that he'd be able to probably do what he wants is through like a 40B, which is what I would assume is meant with when Liz says market rate / affordable, because it has, both.
right. Okay, and then we received, so we just thought, we said in our January 22nd meeting, we'll just ask if he wants to come in and talk to us, that's all. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for letting us pick your brain a little bit. We received an email from Liz about basically the infusion of monies and grants that are coming through to the state. Planning for Housing Production Grant Program, it's about a grant that we should probably look at.
Did you give us a copy of that?
Those 3 sheets are basically
okay.
what it is, yeah. Mass Housing's provides cities and towns with technical capacity needed to implement local planning and transform priority development sites into new affordable homes. This program assists municipalities in capitalizing on zoning changes for equitable, transit-oriented multifamily development and progressing toward achieving and exceeding Chapter 40B's 10% affordable housing goal. This is not for funds, it's for technical assistance. And I know that the transit-oriented district is a big thing now, so maybe we can look into this and maybe meet with the planning board about it, because I know they're in charge of that. You probably know more
Yep.
about this than I do, but, so maybe we should, talk to Liz and say we might be interested in a grant. And she's affiliated with the planning board too, so maybe she can put us in the right direction as far as that goes.
Yeah,
So,
I think the planning board just had a meeting to approve what some of that district is going to be.
Right, they did.
and once
So,
that gets approved, I would imagine developers are gonna come in and say, let's,
I think it was already approved. So it's the land, on the train side of Progress. It's the Woodlands North, and then I think it's over to just past Plymouth Street, 1015 Plymouth. Almost positive that's what the.
and there's
zone is.
buildable land in there, right?
Well, 1015 Plymouth Street's definitely buildable.
Okay.
And the train station, that's where Zero Summer Street's going in.
Right.
So that's 190-something units.
It might be good to meet with the planning board on this anyways, just so,
Yeah.
because if, we'd like, anything we can do, maybe this, Mr. O'Leary might be knowing what's happening and
Yeah.
trying to get ahead of it, so that he
Yeah.
could be part of the transit-oriented plans that go through. So we will, I'll reach out to Liz on this. I'll probably reach out to you guys too, just about, is this something that we should be shooting for? And schedule, part of the agenda is to schedule some meetings with the planning board as well as the board of selectmen, so I'd like to do that. That's part of our action plan, things that we're supposed to do. So I started off with, the town manager is meeting with Judy, I think, Wednesday at noon time. I don't know if you know that, Alexa. And, well, that's what he told me at least. And the other thing was, he still does not have an answer whether the declaration of trust was filed with the Registry of Deeds, which is our first item. We have a copy of it, I just don't know if it was actually ever filed, so he was supposed to find out, okay? So, Alexis, after the last meeting, right away was able to present us with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, Chapter 40B, Subsidized Housing Inventory. And when she sent me the email, she did note that ironically, there are 4 units coming up in 2028, which doesn't take long, So how does that work? When they're coming off, they're not gonna be subsidized anymore, they're gonna be looking for money, right? Probably.
Yes.
Now, will they be looking for money, or they might just say, no, we don't wanna be subsidized anymore, we won't take your money, and it would just be regular housing, or?
Yeah, so let me pull up that SHI again and see, I can't remember which properties, it is. Here we go.
Yeah, Mount Laurel Lane,
That's a residential neighborhood. It was number 7 on the list that you gave us.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, so Mount Laurel Lane so that sounds like it must be, some smaller scale project. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Liz has more information about what that property is, because there's no address given other than Mount Laurel Lane. Do you know what property it is?
No, but we know
No.
where Mountain Laurel Lane is, and
It's all single-family homes as far as I know.
yeah, it's weird.
Okay.
I mean, someone might just,
So,
yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, so, yeah, typically, if there's an expiring deed restriction, I mean, you are correct that yes, it would entail most likely money, whether it's buying down with the owner to increase the length of time on the deed restriction, and I suppose it is up to whoever owns the project. I mean, again, if it's rental, I don't know if they're like 4 separate units or if it's in a building. I think I heard someone say they think it's primarily single family. So it's a little hard to know without knowing more about the program. But yeah, I would check with Liz on that. And then the other one that's not like that far ahead really is that 130 units on Chestnut Glen. I mean, that's a big one to have, I would say, again, in consultation with Liz, seeing what the deed rider on that property actually says, and if it expires in 2032, what the town can do, working with the current owner to, make sure those units are retained on the SHI, because that would be a real hit to lose those.
Do you know why there's an asterisk next to the 10/20/32?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me, I actually asked and I did receive a response. Sorry, give me one. Let's see. She said, Margot Leclerc, from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities said, that represents housing for which continuing affordability is subject to a rental assistance contract with HUD. That's okay. So that must be exactly it. So, and then she says, which could be extended and is subject to federal appropriation. So that might be, how that's subsidized. There's some sort of, it might have HUD Section 8 project-based vouchers that maybe expire in 2032, but it sounds like they can be extended. But it sounds like something you'd want to plan ahead for.
So that might cost us some money too, or is that basically just?
I don't think that would, because that's an appropriation from the federal government. It sounds like, my assumption is it's through the Section 8 program. So through Section 8, there's project-based vouchers and mobile vouchers, which like the person can take to any market rate unit to use. But a project-based voucher subsidizes the actual, project, hence the name. And so I think it might actually just be a matter of reapplying to HUD for that subsidy. So I don't think that would require money of any kind other than, I guess the staff time or whatever, would be required to ensure that happens.
So let me ask you this. If someone has a voucher for Section 8, right, and they live in an apartment in Abington, does that count on our, on this list, subsidized housing list?
No, it does not.
It does not. Okay.
No, because they could move tomorrow to a different unit in a different town. So the mobile vouchers do not count, but project-based vouchers that are tied to a specific project, like what I assume is the case with Chestnut Glen, those do count.
Right. And there's another one too, the George Gillespie Way. That's a residential neighborhood too, I
Yeah.
believe.
But
Says
that's a
ownership.
40B.
Oh, okay. Levitt Terrace, Southie. And then the group homes, they're not in perpetuity. No, they're not.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So group homes are handled a little bit differently. They count on the SHI, but they're not subsidized in the same way because it's a really restricted kind of closed referral system of tenants. So, but I'm not sure, you know, how that policy was determined, but group homes do count on the SHI, even though they're not necessarily, you know, they're not affordable to the larger community. So that'll stay unless I think the policy that puts them on the SHI changes, which I don't foresee ever happening, but that would stay on the SHI. Those are safe.
I mean, they're not in perpetuity, because if the owner of the group home sells it and decides, no, I want to turn it into a four-family, or if I want to, but as long as they're group homes, they count.
I suppose that's true, yeah, but as long as they're group homes, they are on, you have 40 of them that are on the SHI. When you see one that says 0, so you might see that Abington Senior Housing and then that other DDS group homes that says 0. Typically that's because something was, you know, may have received whatever initial permitting to get on the SHI, because the town can apply to have units go on the SHI before they're actually occupied, as long as like the ball is rolling. So for example, I think with the 40B project, it would be after the comprehensive permit has been issued. But then if I think it's if a building permit hasn't been issued within a certain time frame, the unit count drops to 0. They'll keep it on there and, you know, put the units in whenever it's addressed. But so, you know, at some point in time, for those two that say 0, there may have been a number there. And then, you know, if anything happened that delayed, you know, issuance of a building permit or something, that might be why you're seeing that 0.
So, yeah, this is 115.
It's supposed to be 1015 Plymouth Street. Is this something that you got from the state?
Yes.
So that address is incorrect. It's 1015. How do we get that fixed?
I'm not sure. I assume Liz is the staff contact who would be, every year the state sends like kind of a, you know, the current SHI to communities to make sure they're not missing anything. And so it would be whoever in Abington receives that report. I assume it's Liz, but if it's not Liz, I bet she would know who it is.
Thank you.
So this is a project that's being done, right? Is this the point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But-
not, he doesn't have, he's trying to sell it right now, and he had a buyer, but it fell through. So it's still in the market.
Yeah, but they've already got approval, so,
They've gotten approval,
yeah,
yes.
okay. From Mass
But I don't know
Housing.
how long, they've got, I guess they're all permitted and they're all set with water, but, because this project started before COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long is a permit good for?
This is gonna sound like a strange question, and I know we don't have the funding for it, but could we work with someone who already has an approved through Mass Housing subsidized housing, and if they're trying to sell it, could the town step in and maybe become partners with someone to purchase it? Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but if there's some permitting agreement, this may be something you need to follow up on the details with Judy, but if there's in the permitting agreement from the town, language about the permit being tied to some number of affordable units or something like that, then that doesn't just go away. So upon selling, I believe the requirements of that permit in order for the new purchaser to be able to build would still be, you know, limited to, so in other words, I think it would be protected anyway if a new owner was looking to take over and continue the project, because the town would have issued some sort of permit, which is essentially, you know, an agreement for, you know, why they're allowing that building to take place. So that wouldn't just go away upon resale.
Local developer who's well-known in town, and they actually came to us, I think, in the beginning, and, you know, and we were all for it. Yes, if it's affordable and it helps the seniors in town, it backs up to our senior center. Now it sounds like they either rethinking it or they're trying to sell because there's no money to be made, but I think it'd be worth our while to meet with them and say,
It's been a financing issue
Yeah.
with them, yeah, because I've talked to the person at the company numerous times.
They
And
were all set to go.
Yeah, they were.
They were all approved.
And then they did have somebody who was very interested, and that seemed to be going forward, and they wanted to build, you know, the plan's all set, so they were gonna build the same plan, and then that fell through.
yeah.
So it's still on the market at a much reduced price now.
I mean, it sounds to me like it would be a win-win if the towns could somehow get involved, because we can borrow. money, we have the right, as long as we know there's funding coming, if the town wants to vote and borrow money to help, I don't know. It sounds like, do you remember how many units? It was over 100 units, wasn't it?
Yes, I might be able to tell you
140,
quickly.
That's a good question.
I
Yeah,
think it was 140 something.
yeah, it's a lot
I
of
actually
units, and it
have
was
it
gonna be,
saved.
it's gonna be senior housing, and, there were gonna be some market rate, but there was also gonna be a percentage
Okay.
was gonna be, I don't know.
I can tell
It
you.
was over 55.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's over
over
55.
Over
55.
55.
I'm just,
144 units.
Yeah.
And how many were gonna be affordable, do you know?
I think they were doing at least 25%.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
this is something maybe we could, we've already got, already got approval, they already have the land. They're trying to sell it cheap, maybe do a project together. There is a lot, there are projects like this, public-private, that get done,
So this is what it reads, fully approved site for 144 multifamily units consisting of 72 one-beds, 72 two-beds with age restrictions. 17.4 acres, it's an approved 40B project, 25% of the units must remain affordable at 80% AMI.
But the
Site
net-
has town water and town sewer and is adjacent to the senior center.
So they're selling it with that, the comprehensive permit that's part of the package deal. You're developing under that comprehensive permit. But they didn't sound like there's anything about 55 plus in there.
It says age restrictions.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you said deed restrictions. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because they're trying to take care of the seniors in town. Now, in the past, it was on the market for 3.95, and now it's 2.5 million. So they lowered the price when that other deal fell through. they-
You wonder if they just couldn't come up with the funding, or if they just wanna wash their hands of it completely, because if they still wanna be involved,
They want to get somebody in there who knows, who's done this before, and that's what the last developer situation was, because they were very optimistic about it, to the point where the previous developer had actually called around to meet with people to discuss the senior situation in town.
Yeah.
And then something happened that it collapsed. I know that financing was a problem for the developer who owns it. The interest rates, first COVID happened, then the interest rates went up.
But it sounds like the subsidizing was mass housing, so they were gonna chip in and help, so,
So it's funny how the word subsidizing is used when you're talking about 40B. Subsidizing in Massachusetts, when there's a subsidizing agency, it may just mean that they are just issuing the project eligibility letter for a kind of standard privately developed 40B. They're not kicking in funding. I don't quite understand why they use the term subsidizing agency, but
okay. Do you think we should just forget about this, or maybe investigate doing something with it? It's not gonna hurt to say, maybe we can work together. And they might say, no, we wanna wash our hands of it completely, I
Well,
don't
he
think the town's I don't think the town should do it, because we don't,
Right.
but, I don't know.
Yeah, he reached out to me and he said that he would like to meet with us.
Okay, well, there we go,
Okay.
we can meet. It's not gonna hurt, I like the fact that it's for seniors, which is one of our, and it will add to our, affordable housing. I don't know, something, I would like to get, you or Judy in on that meeting, if you're available, we can set up a date. Do we wanna set up for the 22nd? Do we have a special meeting for this? I think this might be a special meeting, just
Yeah.
all on its own.
Do we want to do some preliminary investigating first and then
Yeah, I
decide?
think that's better.
But you would say we, you mean Liz, or you mean Barrett Consulting,
Well,
because we don't know.
I can talk to him and I could talk to Liz and see how we need to
Where
proceed.
they're at, and
Yeah.
if that would be something
That,
that they would entertain, I don't know.
it's kind of like a project that we've talked about before, increasing, and just because it's planned with what you just said, doesn't mean it can't go more affordable units. I don't think it can be less, but,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just, but I would think the town wouldn't let it be any less because they've approved a permit. But if it's more affordable housing, I don't think they'd have a problem with that.
I just
don't know.
asked Ron about Mount Laurel Lane,
Yeah.
and he said,
Her husband's the next fireman, so we might know about Laurel Lane.
group/nursing home, long-term care.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Maybe like a hospice house or something like
It's
that.
probably like a long-term care
Oh, okay.
house,
All right.
so.
So, which doesn't mean, which isn't guaranteed to stay that way after their subsidies run out in 2028, but,
Yeah.
okay. So the plan is you're gonna reach out to the developer?
Yes.
And Liz?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
yep.
And see if they want to come to a January meeting, maybe we can have a special one. As soon as we find that out, we'll reach out to Barrett Consulting and just,
Okay, I'll
see
let you know what I
options we
find
have.
out.
Okay.
And who's gonna ask Liz about these?
I can do that. I can just check,
Chestnut,
I can
chestnut,
check with
okay.
Liz
Okay,
on the expiring affordability. That's fine.
okay.
Okay. All right. Alexis, welcome again. You've already become an integral part of this meeting. A draft strategic plan, action plan, whatever we call it today. Thank you for getting this to us. It looks like it's complete. I'm not really sure. I had a busy weekend, so I didn't have a lot of time to look it over, other than, a little bit of time today. I do like all the different, the background, though. It was a very, a lot of information. And I liked the graph about the median, not necessarily, the one about the average age that people, what the hell was it?
Page 4.
Yeah, page 3. No, wait. The heck was it? Oh, this one here. Yeah, page 4. The different ages, and then how, it's kind of weird how it goes up, and then once you get to be about 60, then you start losing your houses, or, less people own houses.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. For the, yeah, what is it, 85 plus? Let me put it in front of me right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
So, I don't know, we can probably, I'll put this on the agenda for our next meeting to actually approve. So if people can just look at it, and if you want to change anything, I don't think we really need to change much. I wish we had, it's tough. We're all busy and don't have time to look it over, but, I think we all discussed. Did you make any changes in the actual document itself from any feedback from the last meeting?
Sure, good question. The only changes I made in the beginning, so we had talked about the values. We had talked about, whether you had wanted to include, there was a bullet about, equity and inclusivity.
Yeah.
And so, we talked a bit about whether, that is part of the trust's values, in that, kind of what that speaks to in terms of housing is, would include prioritizing housing for all types of households. So I think based on that conversation, the trust decided to remove that bullet. But then as I was rereading, I realized it sounded very similar now to the first bullet. So I just put a footnote that said that it almost just kind of seems redundant with the first bullet, because they're both about providing affordable housing. The first bullet specifies more about like looking for kind of, resourceful opportunities. And the second one is just about providing safe, quality, affordable housing, which you would do through pursuing those opportunities. So it just seemed a little redundant. And so I thought perhaps some of that language could be added to the first bullet. And it could be something like continually pursue strategic and resourceful opportunities to create and preserve safe, quality, affordable housing in Abington. And then that just kind of puts those two together. I'm happy to just leave it the way it is if you want. I just wanted to kind of avoid redundancy if possible.
I like it.
Yeah, I think that made
So
sense.
just add safe quality, preserve safe quality affordable housing, right? Or you talk.
And then we'd be eliminating the last bullet.
Right.
Do
So
you
the
have to vote
first,
on that?
well, we might as well, but, so you're talking about continually pursue strategic and resourceful opportunities to create and preserve safe, quality, safe.
Affordable housing in Abington. That would then become the first bullet, and the last bullet, the sixth bullet, would be eliminated.
Right. Does that sound good to you guys?
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to eliminate the last bullet and change the first bullet to read, continually pursue strategic and resourceful opportunities to create and preserve safe, quality, affordable housing in Abington.
Okay, motion made. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right, unanimous of the members
Okay.
present. Okay,
Sorry.
yep, yeah, you're fine, go ahead.
Okay, so then in the next kind of big section there, that the new section for you is the background. And I would say, you know, in terms of feedback, if you want to take more time to look at it, because I know you just received it, that's fine. If you see something that's incorrect, I would love to know, you know, a typo or just inaccurate information, something that you know is incorrect. But or you know, suggestions for data that should be added. But otherwise, I don't you know, I don't imagine there would be very much. It's just very fact driven. So as much as possible, we're leaning on the 2020 census. And sometimes we're using American Community Survey data, which is also from the Census Bureau, but it's a kind of different source. They're not always congruent, because the census does not provide data about certain things anymore, like income. I don't believe it includes information about disability status anymore either. So for things that are not included in the decennial census that are, you know, demographic specific, we would look at American Community Survey. And then, yeah, I'm just, that's really where the data came from. And then the regulatory constraints, key facts, that might be one that if you have to direct your attention somewhere, you know, in the interest of time, I know you're all very busy, I'm sure, but I would love your input on that. That I really leaned on the 2019 housing production plan, because, you know, I did look at your zoning, but we're not, for the part of this process, we wouldn't be able to do like a full, you know, regulatory review. But so I looked at what the last HPP said and looked at, you know, a little bit the zoning myself to basically the main point that was made in the last housing production plan is that there are very few provisions for being able to create housing types other than detached single family homes. And unless you're going through the 40B process. So all these bullets here, it's not saying they're a good thing or a bad thing. It's just identifying them as a barrier to housing choice. It's not, you know, that's kind of a value neutral term. It's just objectively saying these are the things in your zoning that currently, you know, kind of regulate different housing types other than single family. But if you think there's anything, you know, that's missing or you wanted to comment on, it'd be really helpful to have your feedback on that. I did touch on what we talked about last time with the accessory dwelling units versus, so the town currently has an accessory apartment bylaw, which is very specifically for relatives. And so, and requires a special permit, which isn't, I mean, I wouldn't say that's that unusual, but some communities are moving to being able to do ADUs by right. But I think the bigger limiting factor there is that currently in Abington, those accessory apartments are only to be, you can't rent them to anyone other than a close relative. So if you are talking about ADUs as a means for creating more housing that's kind of built into the existing community, that current bylaw limits that a bit.
Isn't the
So-
state doing something right now with ADUs?
Yeah, good. My understanding is that that housing bond bill, the Affordable Homes Act that's Governor Healy put forth, does talk about requiring communities to allow ADUs, you know, within certain parameters. I want to say probably by right, but I'd have to look, but it is mentioned in that housing bond bill. Yes.
Thank you.
Later on in our meeting, we're talking about joint meetings with the planning board and Board of Selectmen. I'll probably add zoning board as well, you know, maybe just try to have a meeting of the minds to talk about this sort of stuff. I might run this, at least the regulatory constraints, by the zoning board, because in the planning board, just so, you know, to see if they agree with it, or just, you know, the facts in it, you know.
Yeah, sure. That's more than welcome. That's a great idea, actually.
Also let them know that we're serious about this, and we're not, you know, we want to investigate any avenues that, you know. All right, what else you got for us? That was,
Okay, so then nothing changed in the strategic plan, focus areas or resources required. For the strategic plan toolbox, I'm just gonna zip through. I think I had talked about at your last meeting, you talked about, you know, how it's a little hard to know if something's a high priority or not. So, you know, and that might shift. So, I took my best stab at what, you know, from just a professional perspective, seems to be, if you have limited time, limited resources, the things that probably make the most sense, just on, you know, to prioritize. But then at the beginning of year 2 and at the beginning of year 3, I added a new strategy that says, so as an example, you can see on page 13, assess any incomplete year 1 actions, and if still applicable, develop a plan to complete in year 2. So anything that maybe was not identified as a high priority, it's not just going to fall by the wayside. It's a clear action in years 2 and year 3 to go back and look at year, you know, the previous year and see what was not completed and make a plan for addressing it. Because some of the things, so the way it's structured is, you know, for example, for say action 1.2 on page 11, there are kind of like sub actions, 1.2A, 1.2B, 1.2C. Not all actions need to be broken down to that level of specificity. They're pretty straightforward, but for the ones that do, you may notice that not all of those sub actions are checked off. So for example, on page 11, 1.2, establishing a procedure for tracking implementation of the strategic plan, I would say that is a high priority. And then in terms of for year 1 of those sub actions that really would be the, you know, highest priority, is first thing you want to do is you would want to determine the frequency of discussing the progress of the strategic plan, establishing a procedure for amending the plan as necessary. So you really should do that in year 1. If in year 1 you also get around to, you know, using those progress updates to kind of inform a report that gets submitted for the town's annual report, maybe presenting status updates annually in some sort of forum, a roundtable discussion, great. But if not, I would say those are not huge priorities for year 1, because you're you know, getting kind of oriented in the process of tracking the implementation. For the resources needed, I only selected from 5 that are listed, either funding, property, community support, partnerships, or capacity. So even though we could get much more specific about how each of those could break down as a resource, for easily being able to refer back to the prior section where the types of resources are explained, I just stuck with those resources needed. The responsible parties, I am open to another term for that column, because I don't, you know, I think it's good to think about who those partners would be, but it's also, you know, I don't want any other, you know, town body to look at this and say, what are you talking about? We're not responsible for that. It's, some of them are more, it's really like select suggested partners that, you know, would be helping the trust execute the, the implementation of a particular task. But it's all really, you know, I think a suggestion that's up to discussion and change. And, you know, so I think, you know, as you review the draft, if there's anything that you disagree with in terms of whether it's a high priority or who the responsible party should be, I'm happy to take a look at that. And then I think the only thing I'm kind of realizing as I talk through this with you, that it might make sense to really make clear in that intro paragraph to the strategic plan toolbox that the priorities and responsible parties are a suggested course of action. It's not like, you know, an edict, and it's certainly flexible from how you see it as being best implemented.
Yes.
And I do not think there's any other differences. I mean, I'm happy to share also a red line version with you if you know, if you just easily want to be able to compare. I think the only things, the only kind of new strategies really were in year 2 and year 3, making it very clear to go back and review the prior year. And then for some of the actions, I may have fleshed out like those sub A, B, C, D actions a bit just to, make your life easier. But there's no, totally brand new actions that you did not see last time.
Nope.
And then lastly, in the appendix, it just includes, starts on page 17, the statutory authorization to establish a municipal affordable housing trust. That is very, fancy legal language. So then in Appendix B, page 21, I do believe at the beginning of this process, Judy shared with you the third bullet, Massachusetts Housing Partnerships Municipal Housing Trust Guidebook. They have a new version from 2023. They call this the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Operations Manual. And that is, another really helpful resource. So I did link that in there. In addition to your current housing production plan, a link where people can find whatever the current HUD income limits are, your current SHI. Although just a caveat that the link for the subsidized housing inventory, I think it's the 5th link down. That is just a very broad overview for all communities. It doesn't specify individual projects. It's just the total count. So you can look up for any community, what their total, what their current status is. But in terms of getting info on specific projects, like what I shared, Ken, with you after the last meeting, that you have to get directly from the state. And if there's any like particular questions on a certain project, I would say Liz would be the person to start with.
So Abington has a housing production plan, and from September 2019. How often should they be done? Is it every 10 years, or is it every 5 years?
Okay, so, Ken, that is a really great question because that probably should be addressed in year 3 to start pursuing, to consider the update of that.
Yeah.
So a housing production plan is meant to be a 5-year document. You don't have to have a housing production plan. The advantage to having one, other than the fact that it's just good for setting policy, and for reference, quite a few of the actions that are in the strategic plan were in your housing production plan. So I looked at what was recommended in that plan, like for example, inclusionary zoning and just some of the strategies that were outlined in that. One of which was to establish a trust, and that was done. So, just kind of leaning on that to see what sorts of strategies were identified then. But if a community meets its annual production target that is identified in the plan within a given calendar year, they can seek what's called safe harbor from the state, where even if they have not hit 10%, essentially they are kind of buffered from, they have more flexibility in being able to deny a comprehensive permit or 40B project. So that is the advantage to having a what's called a certified housing production plan. I don't think any community meets that target every year because it's usually quite a lofty goal. I'm trying to see what it was in Abington for the last plan. Does anyone know offhand? It's 0.5% of your year-round housing count is how it gets determined.
I don't understand what you mean.
Okay, so sorry, I can figure this out for you in 2 seconds. So a housing production plan has to include a numerical production goal for affordable housing units. Otherwise, the state won't approve the plan. And it's just a very clear formula. So what the state says you have to do is you have to take your year-round, your total housing units, and you have to figure out what 0.5% of that is. And that is therefore the annual production goal that your housing production plan needs to state. So for Abington, if you were to figure that out now with the year-round numbers, if you were to do a new housing production plan, like, right now or when this one expires, your annual target would be 34 units of affordable housing produced a year. That's based on 0.5% of your 6,799 housing units. So if you think do you think your community is consistently year after year going to produce 34 units of affordable housing? It's a tough goal to say you're going to do that every year, but if there is a calendar year where you do meet that goal, so if there's a project that gets permitted that has more than 34 units, then the town could apply to the state for what's called safe harbor. And you essentially have a 1-year buffer from any, kind of more aggressive 40B projects, being able to turn them down even if you're not at 10%.
That's what happened with Zero Summer Street, because they've been fighting that for years. And then when the Plymouth Street one got approved, he didn't realize that he had gotten that approval and added a few more affordable units, it would have been safe harbor for.
Oh, that can be very frustrating when a community just like something happens to miss that.
Yeah, it was kind of like the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand, and it was like a lot of ifs, but Plymouth Street's got its issues now anyway, so it probably wouldn't have come to fruition anyway, but it was a good example of that.
So I'm glad that you asked this question, Ken, because this plan was done in September 2019, which means depending on when it was approved by the state, I'd have to look and see when that was. But let's, assuming around September 2019, the plan expires September 2024. So I'm embarrassed to say that the strategic plan doesn't currently identify that as an action. It absolutely should. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And it probably should include it. So if you need to have the new plan done by September 2024 in an ideal world.
End of the first year, right?
Sorry?
Be the end of year one, to start working.
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
the housing production plan was usually done by the planning board, I believe.
That's a great question. It's actually, now that you have an affordable housing trust, you'd probably be leading the process. It might be staff led. It depends. So your last housing production plan was done by your regional planning agency. It was done by Old Colony Planning Council. So the town probably got some grant or something to be able to do that. But there's usually some town entity that's kind of leading the process, working with the consultant. And so when the plan is done, the plan should the plan needs to be approved by your planning board and your select board, but they're usually not the ones who lead the process. It's usually either like a department, a staff, or a board or committee, which when the last HPP was done, there was no affordable housing trust, but there is now. And so I would say that you're correct. I'm just going to make a note here. So in year one, so typically what you would want to do, you'd, unless you're either working with Old Colony Planning Council again, which, they do a solid job. Plan checks all the boxes. It's good, good strategies that I incorporated into this. So you could apply for a technical assistance grant through Old Colony Planning Council, or the town could, if it had funds available, like you can use CPA funds for this. You can also, put out an RFP for a consultant to help develop the housing production plan. But I would say, Ken, that might be something, sorry, go ahead.
When we meet with the planning board, we can bring this up right away and just say,
You could bring it up with the planning board right away to get it on their radar that they would be asked to approve said plan. But honestly, the people that you probably want to raise this with first is, I would say the town manager, because any sort of funding figuring out, I would say, so either Scott or Liz, because I assume, I know you're assigned staff person.
she's also the staff person for the planning board too, so I think that, and I don't want people to think we're stepping on toes because the planning board did it in conjunction with Old Colony Planning Council. I believe the chairman, maybe he's not the chairman of the planning board, just retired from the old Colony Planning Council. So I would meet with them and say, hey, we want to get a production plan. Do you want us to take the lead on this now that, you know, and just talk to them about it, work in conjunction with them, Old Colony Planning and Liz and everybody, and just get it done.
Yeah, okay, so it looks like I'm looking at the last HPP, which, yes, was adopted by the planning board and the Board of Selectmen as it has to be. The other credits on the credit page include the Housing Authority staff and board members, Community Preservation Committee, and then Abington Affordable Housing Committee, which,
That was our predecessor. It really wasn't
Yes.
this. It,
Yeah.
you know.
right, and now it would be if not staff, I mean, logically, it would be your group. That would be kind of, so typically if you're working with Old Colony Planning Council or a consultant, you would, you know, they would be developing the draft with your input. And then when the Housing Trust has kind of, you know, given you know, they think the plan's good to go, then it goes to the planning board and select board for approval. So I would say one thing that might be helpful, and maybe this also needs to be included as an action, although I know staff capacity is so limited. Do you have like standing check-in times with Liz?
No.
And would that be helpful? Even if it's like once, I mean, I know, you know, because it's almost like as we're talking, like I'm writing this list of questions that, you know, we can shoot off to Liz, but even if it's not a meeting, maybe like being able to send her a memo every now and again to get responses, just some sort of,
I usually
Sorry.
send her emails before the meeting just to get some answers to questions. I feel like
oh, okay.
we're out on an island sometimes though by ourselves because we're new at this. We don't know what we're doing. So you guys have been great help, but we do need some more staff.
Well, you know, I appreciate that, but my goodness, the addressing the housing production plan update absolutely needs to be added as a strategy. And so I think when you reach out to Liz about some of these other questions, like those particular projects you were asking about on the SHI, you may also want to just say, hey, so the next housing production plan in an ideal world, if you don't want there to be any lapse, you'd want to be starting that conversation so that whether you go through Old Colony Planning Council again or whatever the town is amenable to doing. But now, you know, you could also, if you wanted more than what OCPC can do with their, you know, their the limitations of whatever grant funds they have, you could also use CPA funds if you so desired. But yeah, I would add that to your list of things to talk about with Liz.
It's our own funds that we have now from CP, you know, and we have money in our account. We can
Yep.
just, you know.
Yep.
And we could also ask
Okay.
next year for them to reimburse us the funds we used, or we can just, but yes, we have funds, so,
Are you gonna send
So-
Liz an email?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You got your bullet points?
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fine. So let's
Talked about a
all right,
lot.
So let's go back to this, so, what else do you wanna talk about as far as your, I mean, we wanna look it over. It's tough for us, but we'll look it over, and are there anything else that you think we should be changing? So now we're gonna change the plan a little bit and throw this in there. Right, so,
Yeah.
okay.
So just to clarify, I have a couple questions I want to ask Judy. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. One, I want to just ask her about, I think we kind of already covered the one about selling the property that, yeah, we already covered that. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything about other options for how to extend an expiring deed restriction. So I'm going to ask her that and make sure we get back to you on that because of those 4 units. I don't know what those 4 units are, though. That's something that you would have to ask Liz. I also just want to confirm with her, I had mentioned earlier that when it says subsidizing agency or whatever it says in that column on the SHI. So yeah, subsidizing agency, it's either going to be Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities or Mass Housing Partnership. And so they're typically for a regular 40B where there's market rate units and it's privately developed, they're not putting in funds, they are issuing what's called a project eligibility letter, and then they are also authorizing the deed restriction in perpetuity. So that's like what their job is. That doesn't mean they don't provide subsidies if it's a kind of, it depends on, I don't want to get too into funding sources, but that's my understanding is that for a standard 75% market rate, 25% affordable, most likely they're really just saying they're giving their approval for the plan. But I will confirm that and make sure I have that answer for you. And then I think you were going to ask about meeting with that developer potentially in January. Some of those questions about the units on the SHI. And then I just added to that request to just talk about if the town has thought about or, you know, what the plan should be looking ahead to thinking about that HPP update.
Okay.
I'm going to add that strategy. And oh, sorry, my Siri is talking to me. So I'm going to add that strategy and amend that bullet. But then before I send that back to you, if I could just say maybe like, Ken, if I could just ask if you take maybe by, I don't know, get you through the holidays. I know it's busy. I don't know, by January 2nd, maybe to get me any written comments that I can address so that you can vote on it whenever your January meeting is.
All right, yeah, we'll get comments from the board.
Okay. So January 2nd seems reasonable.
Yeah,
Okay.
comments from us if we see something, you know.
Okay.
So,
And then just when you communicate that to the other board members, if you could just let them know that that bullet, that 6th bullet is being deleted or amended and that we're adding a strategy relative to the HPP update.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
I have a question for the ladies here. Is that Little Point property in the transit district?
I believe it's included.
It should be, yeah.
That's interesting.
It should be because it's within,
It's
And we
right-
don't have to, you don't actually have to
Yeah.
build on the Todd, you just have to have the districting.
Yeah.
It's not saying that you have to
Right, yeah.
get so many
But I
units
think
in
there's
there.
incentives from the state to provide affordable housing in the transit districts. So that might be another funding source that we, the town, could, you know, entice them to continue this project. But that's just, you know.
we'd have to look into that.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly, so.
Say that again, Ken?
No, I don't know, to entice either LaPointe to stick with it or entice whoever's gonna take,
Prospective
yeah,
buyer.
prospective buyers or the town, you know, I think there'll be more funding sources. I think part of this plan that we're talking about, this housing plan that's coming down from the state, it really focuses on the transit district. If this proposed project is in that transit district, you never know what's gonna happen.
The project that has 0 listed as the 1015 Plymouth
Yeah.
Street? Okay,
Yeah. It's in that new district that was just approved,
gotcha.
which is
Well,
pretty,
I know they
I think
were,
it's in it.
I know they were saying if you did meet your goal, or the town had to vote on whether or not they were going to, go along with that district. And if you didn't, then they were saying the state would not, you would not be eligible for some of the state grants
Right.
and monies, but I don't think Abington gets them anyway. So, there was a whole
no,
article in
but
the
they get,
paper.
but they get to list the houses on there, you know,
Yeah, but I'm just saying, they were,
subsidized.
there was an article in the paper maybe just last week about this with, some of the surrounding towns. And, some of the towns were saying, you know, don't give us your money. We don't want your money, but we don't wanna have to put, 2,000 units in this district. And they were kinda saying, well, the state is, the state can't penalize you if you don't wanna do it, but they're kinda saying you have to do it, so it's kind of a tug of war with some of the towns.
I don't know. All right. So are we all set with Alexis? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I was just looking like at year 3, some of the actions to partner with the planning board to develop an inclusionary zoning bylaw, undertake an inclusionary zoning feasibility study with OCPC. So that might even be something that, if we're gonna be meeting with the planning board, that we might wanna even, bring up.
But that's-
earlier
well,
than
that's
the
why
third year
That's why I think
plan.
it's a fluid plan, and
Yeah.
we could take something earlier and then
Yeah.
move stuff around, so.
So there's a couple of different things, I think, that
Yeah, I do think, so I will kind of beef up that intro just to explain like the fluid nature of the actions, but, certainly, absolutely, if there's an opportunity for something that arises outside of the year 1, year 2, year 3 framework, definitely makes sense to act on it, when it makes sense. But, yeah, if you have, if you give Ken written comments, if you think something should be moved, certainly let me know.
I'm just saying, if we can do them sooner, it's and
Yeah,
the
it's not
second
etched in
year,
stone. Yeah,
it was the ADU units, so if we're gonna be
Yep.
meeting, we might be able to kind of check off some boxes.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, anything else?
No.
We'll let you go since your phone's going off. You must have something, somewhere to be, or something to not get.
No, my child was running outside the door with some toy making Christmas music. I apologize. So anyway, yeah, okay, so I'll await comments for you, from you by January 2nd, and I will follow up with Judy on those questions that I had, and I'll get back to you, Ken, by email.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you. Have a nice holiday.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, you too. Bye.
Okay, continue discussion about South Shore Habitat for Humanity's Plymouth Street house. She is not here. A possible they did fill out the thing for the CPA.
Yes.
So they're all set for that. She had asked a question, how many housing CPA articles were there? There were 3. There was that one, there was ours, and then there was also the one, I think, actually, I know exactly what it was. I think it was for a house that the town, or the veterans were going to do something with on, I got a text about it today. Progress Street property. Liz had applied for CPA funds for Progress Street property, but she isn't moving forward with it, so it's just us now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, was it
Joe Franny. Is that the Joe Franny land?
I don't know, but were they gonna buy it and convert it into housing or something? I don't know what they were gonna do with it. I don't know.
Who was doing it?
The town, Liz put the money, Liz did it. I don't know if it was gonna be veterans or.
So
Well,
I didn't have that in I picked up a stack from Kelly for the CPA meeting tomorrow night.
But it was pulled. That's
It
what
was
I'm telling- It was
pulled.
pulled, so
Oh,
it's
was
just 2
pulled.
now. So it's just us, and we had asked for $250,000. Their meeting is tomorrow night. If you're able to come by, stop by.
I'll be there.
Oh, okay. But,
I just didn't make the last one.
but
I've
if you,
made every
if
other
you,
one.
if you're able to go, I gotta present that, so it's just that, and I have a couple historical ones and we're just gonna ask you just to keep going with our, I'm gonna sell it, that we just wanna keep building up, because you never know, and now we're talking about a couple of years down the road, we're gonna might have to buy some of the expiring, credits, and we have opportunities, and, now we have a housing production plan that's gonna need to be done, and that's gonna have to be funded, so there's always gonna be something to use it for, and you never know when it's gonna pop up, so, and I'm also gonna share with them that they're not gonna look at everything, but their money went to this, and now there's an affordable housing trust, it's just requiring, and I'll just touch upon some of the things, some of our lofty goals, so that's why we need money. And also, big thing is in years 2 and 3 is some staffing. We need staff. We need to be able to do this stuff, so. Habitat for Humanity, here's a touchy spot. So, you keep going back and forth, and the town hasn't been helping them. Ellen looked it up, and I looked it up too. The property on, what's the name of the street? Patterson Street is just shy of 300 feet. It requires 100 feet for frontage, so they can do 2 lots, and if they got a variance, they can do 3 lots there. I don't know, I don't want to be embarrassed again, and I've told that, so my suggestion is we meet with the selectmen. They can invite the Griffins in. Griffin is under the assumption that the property was bought for open space, but that's not the case. It was, it was for recreation, future town usage, and all different things. At the time, they were doing the sewer construction on Patterson. They left 3 stubs because they knew there might be the possibility that there might be some development there. So I checked with the sewer, and there are 3 stubs there. We have a plan. We presented it to, and I don't know, Habitat was talking about on Charles Street and other I think that the only way, if it flies at all, would be one house on Patterson,
Or maybe,
or two,
Yeah.
two. They were talking about two.
yeah.
You know, maybe one on either end and leave the middle open. I just find it hard to believe that there's a parking lot there that the town paid for, the Griffins paid for, well, the town would have paid for it, and it's fenced in, and they don't allow people to use it, so what, that side of the property is not being used, and they planted some Christmas trees there for future use for trees, which have been outlawed from Island Grove. We can't put trees there anymore, so there's a few trees there that were donated and are being, growing up, Christmas trees. So, I mean, I think it's a good thing, and I know that a couple selectmen, I think, well, obviously, one of our members is a select person, and she's the one that brought the idea forward, so I just don't want to be embarrassed, so maybe we should just sit down with the selectmen at a meeting and just say, look, this is what, you know, Habitat for Humanity is a great cause, you know, you shot us down here, they said there's more land, no one wants to come forward to give land. Is the town willing to give up a lot up there? I don't know how the board here feels about this. Do we just let it go and say, no, forget it, we don't want to do it?
No, I think we should pursue it. Habitat really wants to build more in Abington. And, you know, it's just a tiny corner. What is it, 17 acres?
Oh, it's a lot more than that.
I don't
Yeah,
remember what
yeah,
it is, but just using that one small section, it's not interfering with anything that's up there.
Right?
I don't know, I know they put the fence up for a reason, I can't remember if it was being used, and they had that, I can remember somebody telling me that they put that fence up on purpose.
You mean the fence that blocks the
Yeah.
parking lot? Okay.
But I also know that when they have you know, they're hoping to have more events and stuff there, and they're hoping to have other, you know, another entrance, so, I don't know, I hate to go up against another group, you know, I don't know.
Okay. Because I just thought we could sit down with the selectmen and say, you know, the selectmen might say no.
We can
They
see
might
what
get-
their
They
thoughts
might get
are.
some pressure, you know, especially if the Griffins people are there, but I was on the committee, the first committee, and we actually recommended selling off the lots on the outskirts. One of the current
On the
select-
Griffins Committee?
Yes, and one of the current members of the Board of Selectmen was the selectman at the time, and he got up at town meeting and said, you know, we're gonna buy it, you know, we're gonna pay this amount of money, we'll recoup our money by selling some of the lots, and they never sold them. You know, because the board's wishy-washy, they also, you know, we wanted to save the barn, and they were wishy-washy, couldn't make a decision and let it burn down, you know?
You know,
So,
they might not have wanted to sell it at that point, because they wanted to, you know, keep the land, keep the, you know,
well,
the
okay,
open space, so.
well then, why are
That's
they
fine.
selling off parcels of land in the town?
I just
Surplus
mean,
property.
well, surplus property, but that, if it's part of Griffin's Dairy, I think it's a part of that whole development.
I don't know, I don't know what to do. So,
I mean, you can see how the selectmen feel about it, and
well, how does our board feel about giving property in Abington? Let's start with this. Is our board in favor of finding a property in Abington to donate to the Social Habitat for Humanity?
I'm definitely interested.
yeah, I think it just depends on, you know, where it is and what the situation is surrounding it.
Okay.
You know, they approached us about the Glenowitz Way property and that, you know.
They actually didn't approach us about that. They approached us about
Oh, buildable.
land
Oh,
in
yes.
Abington,
Right.
and
Yes.
that was referred to them by the town
Right.
manager.
Right,
Right.
you're correct.
Yeah,
But, so they were gung ho on doing that, and then other, you know, other things happened.
And we were too, as a board, we were in favor of it too.
Yes,
Until,
and then, but now it seems to be going the recreation route. So it's very frustrating because I feel like we're trying to get affordable housing, but we aren't proceeding because there's too many, I don't know the word I'm looking for. we just seem to be getting shot down at every point. It's just frustrating to me that we can't get anything done. And Habitat, I mean, they're known around, they're around the world and they do so much and they really wanna build more in Abington. And we would like to give them that opportunity and to do more than just Plymouth Street. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, so do we want to meet with the selectmen and the Griffin's Dairy Committee to talk about it?
Sure, I think it wouldn't
Yeah.
hurt.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I'm not talking about 3 houses up there, and I'm not talking about multifamilies, we're talking about a house that fits into the neighborhood up there, you know? I mean, if they wanna do it on Charles Street in the town, you know, we don't wanna give up this prime, we don't wanna give up the tree farm in this parking lot that nobody uses, let's move it around the corner to Charles Street. I'm like, okay, I guess. I
Is
just
there a
think,
lot, is there Charles Street is available?
yeah.
But is there sewerage up there too? So, any sewer stubs up there?
Yeah,
But that has to, you would have to build a road and everything up there, right?
No.
No?
There's a vacant lot. If you go, take a right at the end of Patterson,
Yeah.
onto Charles,
Yep.
right on the right-hand side, I think there's 1 or 2 houses, and then actually, it's right there on your map, right?
Right here.
Yeah. See, so this is vacant, and that's vacant right there, and the sewer goes right there.
Oh, so these are
Those are houses.
houses, and this
Yeah.
is just another
Yeah.
area.
Yep. And this is 7 feet short of being like 3 house lots worth. I think the parking lot is here,
Mm-hmm.
the tree farm's there. I mean, their hiking path, the trail that they have doesn't go there,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Doesn't go on to the, you know, I think it goes over a little bit of water, and I've walked it a couple of times, it's nice up there. And that wouldn't affect any use, but, I mean, I get, people are in charge of things and they don't want, they like the status quo and, you know? But we're not talking about a large scale project, but, so, I'm gonna see if we can get on the agenda for the selectmen's meeting. He mentioned the 8th, but maybe I'll see if we can shoot for the 22nd. Cause, you know, if they are meeting in the 22nd, just say, can we meet then, okay, so.
Who mentioned the,
Well, no, he just informed me that, the town manager informed me that they're meeting on the 8th.
oh, okay.
January 8th,
All right,
you know, if we wanted to come in then, and I just said,
okay.
let's shoot for the 22nd. And what we can do, we can meet before that. And I don't really have an update on the Plymouth Street unless we wanna, you know, I mean, if, I'm going to the CPA meeting tomorrow, they're probably gonna vote on it. Do we want to endorse that project for Plymouth Street? We gave them an endorsement, but we didn't, without a dollar amount.
Yes, and I don't remember what, I left that paperwork at home, because that meeting's tomorrow night, so I
Right,
don't remember
yeah.
what the amount was on it.
What was it, 290 or 292?
I think it was
275,
293.
somewhere out there, yeah.
It was, yeah,
296.
yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere in
remember.
that range.
Is that a lot of money,
290
is that a lot of
something.
money to spend for 1 unit of affordable housing in Abington? And it's not really, that's not
And
really,
that's only the partial amount. They figure it's gonna cost them over 500,000 to get it up and running, but they do a lot of their own fundraising
Right,
and donated labor.
right.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna come out of our piece of the pie. I would think they would still fund us, maybe not the total $250,000, cause I don't know how much they have. Well, they would definitely, they would have enough money to do both, because they only have to give 10% to recreation and 10% to, what's the other one? Recreation, open space, whatever it is, but, historical. So, I mean, there's always more, housing's gotten the 10% minimum pretty much every year.
So I thought we were supporting them anyways.
We voted to support,
it.
to support their initial,
Initial
because,
request,
yes,
okay.
we can just leave it at that.
But now they have to go back.
No, they just actually get, we supported that, yes, they didn't have a dollar amount, or we didn't want to put a dollar amount in there. That's the vote was, just to basically support it. Yeah, we're endorsing it.
So now they're going back with, or they're gonna approve what they wanna approve for it.
Yeah, they have to find, they have to do, that was just eligibility.
Oh,
And
okay.
this next step is you actually, that's why I'm going there tomorrow, you know, we know that the Affordable Housing Trust is eligible. Now we gotta go back and plead our case why we need $250,000. They're gonna do the same thing.
Okay.
You know,
For whatever amount they're requesting.
right.
Well, she attended the last meeting,
Mhm.
that I missed, so I didn't get to see her presentation.
Yeah. That was basically the same one that she gave us, so.
Mhm.
And that would be for them to, acquire the home.
Right.
Okay.
So, and then donate it to, and that question was asked, the same question we asked. There was a preference for an Abington person if they qualify, yeah. So, I mean, we don't need to endorse it other than what we've already done, so it's not, I don't think it's a big deal, but I can just say in theory, we approve of it, you know, so that's fine,
Yep.
okay. Discussion on new Mass Affordable Home Acts, and we just touched upon it a little bit. I don't know enough about it, but, you know, we did get that email about some of the grants that are coming forward for that, so I'm gonna talk to Liz about that and see if that's something we can. Status on the Affordable Housing Trust page on the town's website, there is nothing to add, correct?
No, I have to get in touch with
Okay.
Tony, I'll try to track her down.
All right, why don't we do this? Why don't you send me an email explaining your frustration and what's been happening, and I will forward that to the town manager, okay? Just say, you know, we're trying to get a hold of this, we want to be more self-sufficient, we want to let people know that we're around, because that's part of our action plan.
Right,
You know, that's part of it, you know, it's literally listed in there, and just say, we're having some issues, what should we be doing, what can we do to make this better?
I'll see if she gets back to me, because I just left a message for her the end of the week, and she was gonna be out, and then the message I left was, can you get back to me Monday? So,
All right, schedule 2024 trust meetings and request joint meetings with the planning board as well as selectmen. So I'm gonna shoot for the board of selectmen for January 22nd. To talk about, maybe give them a brief rundown on what we're doing, but also talk about the property with Griffins. Planning board, who's the chair of the planning board now? Is it
it's
Bruce Hughes? It is Bruce
yep.
Hughes? If it's all right, I will reach out to Bruce Hughes and Liz, probably, because she already sets the agenda, and just say, we'd like to come down, meet with you, talk about our, you know, what we're doing, what we're about, talk about how they feel about accessory dwelling units and how to go about changing that. Are they interested? Get their opinion on what was in here for the, there was one page that was talked about regulatory constraints, the key facts, make sure that those are right. Talk about accessory dwelling units, talk about planning board, and also talk about the new housing production plan. I mean, again, nobody wants to step on each other's toes. They reached out to Old Colony Planning Council and did it last year, I'm pretty sure. You know, but if we talk to Liz
yeah.
and Bruce and say, 5 years ago, I should say, you know, do you want us to take the lead on this, since we're the Affordable Housing Trust? And if so, you know, how do we do about it? How do we go? Because Bruce is a wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes to the
Oh, he'll
Old
know.
Colony Planning Council, because he might know,
He'll know
yes, his funds
everything.
available, and, you know, or he might help with it too, so. But I do think that's, and we will note that, you know, it was missed in our priorities. We brought it up at one of our meetings, and now it's in year one right away. It's one of our main priorities for year one, so.
When do they meet? I don't know what their date is.
I thought they met on Monday nights too, but I'm not positive, but
Yeah, I think they do.
I think they just met, not long,
Yeah.
last week.
that's
Was it?
fine.
Yeah, I think it was last Monday.
Was it?
And I don't want us to be all meetinged out, but, you know, we could reach out to them and say, when you have an opening, we'd like to meet with you folks,
Yep,
you know? All right,
zoning board too, right?
yep, zoning board, because, again, I don't know how that works. Do they propose something to the zoning board, like for accessory dwelling units? Do they propose it to the zoning board?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then the zoning board, and there's also the bylaw, you know,
Yeah.
committees, that, but, you know, so I don't know how all that works,
Well,
to
we'll
be honest
start
with you.
with planning.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So
and-
do we want to ask planning about ADU units as well?
When we meet with them, just touch
Yeah,
upon it,
just make
because we
it-
can tell, this is some of
Yeah.
the things we want to talk about. you know, this is what we need your help on, you know, how does this work? And, you know, we'll put together a list, what we wanna talk to them
Yeah.
about.
Inclusionary zoning,
Yep,
ADUs.
yep, inclusionary zoning was something else we brought about too, is like where the developers come in and have to provide, you know, whether it be 10% or 20% affordable housing units.
Yeah, because I was looking page, you know, like
Yep.
year 3, and I'm thinking there
Yep.
might not be any
No.
more
No, and
land
if
to
they don't-
develop in
Right,
in 3
exactly.
years. So how are you gonna even?
Well, that's what happens is,
enforce it
they're,
now?
no, because they don't, in lieu of providing the 10%, oh, you're talking about the developer coming in, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying, but, you know, they have to pay money if they
Yep.
can't provide for 10% units or whatever the town was to
Right,
vote.
and then you have to decide, do you want to accept funding instead of, or do you want to say, no,
Yeah,
we want units?
all right, does anybody else have anything else? So
I
our
don't think
plan,
so.
our plan is to meet on the 22nd and then go to the selectmen's meeting if they're okay with that, okay?
Do you want to schedule any more trust meetings?
Not right now, because I think what we should do is, after you talk to LaPointe, if they, you know, they might want to get the ball
Okay.
rolling, maybe have a special meeting about that, make sure that the Barrett can come in and help us, and
Okay.
Liz, and, you know, whoever approved their project might want to come in too, you know? I mean, if the planning board's approved their project, maybe we can even make it on the the next planning board meeting, we come in and talk about that and some other stuff. I don't know. Towns do work with developers for some of these projects.
Yep.
And especially if they want to fill in the transit district with projects that make sense, create, I mean, I think that's a perfect project for the, you know, transit. It takes care of the seniors, it takes care of some affordability issues. Is there a certain minimum of units that have to be affordable in that? Is that how that works? Do you know? You don't know?
I don't think so. I don't think it's linked to,
I think it's just multi-units.
it's just, yeah.
Okay, so that's
Just
perfect. Then that
multi-units.
way we'll make
But you know
sure.
what, Bruce would know that for sure, because he knows all about the,
Yeah, let's make sure that
POD.
LaPointe is interested in doing that, and, I'm sure they wanna sell it, you know, hey, maybe the town, we don't wanna be a developer, but maybe we could work with a developer, provide some funding, you know, in return, we get units that count against our affordable housing and help seniors, I mean, that's a win-win.
So, Rick Collins from the Planning Board in Abington News wrote an article on December 8th about the district. And
Yeah.
it said it would mostly span the 340B projects located near the town's MBTA commuter rail system and across Summer Street, leaving the abutting residential areas unchanged.
340Bs?
So, Woodlands,
Yeah, but
Um,
they're already in existence.
right,
I think they need to establish.
I don't know that it's necessarily that you have, it can be, include, because Abington was way ahead for what they've been saying on getting this Todd district set up, because a lot of towns haven't done it yet. So they're counting the Woodlands, they're counting Zero Summer, and I think they're counting 1015 Plymouth Street.
I would have thought the Woodlands would have been too old at this point.
I don't know, but it's right on the
But-
train tracks, so,
I mean, if they
Yeah.
wanna count them,
yeah,
you
definitely.
know,
I don't,
That was probably smart of them to include that in the map,
yeah,
in their zone, because then those already count.
right.
it was built, let's see. So, and they're counting the 10-unit apartment building between the tracks and the Woodlands.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
That was new.
yeah.
Yeah, the Woodlands, that was,
It was too old and
Years
couldn't
ago.
be included.
I
Okay.
mean, my kids were in
No, it
elementary
has the
school.
Woodlands here too. I'll send you this,
I can look it up.
okay.
I
It's
just
under
haven't read
Abington
it.
News,
Yep.
and it's, Planning Board recommends multi-unit zoning district near T Station from December 8th.
Mhm. Cool. All right,
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn?
I second.
okay.
You want to vote?
No, you don't need to vote. That's fine. Thank you.
Adjourn.
you.
Good night.
6:56.